I probably lost tens of thousands of pounds on different projects over the years. And that's a good thing. It's a good thing. My name's Tor, and I'm here to explain why good and bad are just perceptions. And the reason I'm going to explain this video is because throughout your career, you're going to experience a lot of different things that happen to you. Things that you're going to absolutely hate at the time it happens. But what you got to realize is that every experience that you have, you may put into a bucket of good and bad, but those are just perceptions of your own mind, and you've placed them there. And when you place something on the bad side of the scale, then you find it more difficult to overcome and you find resistance against it. However, if you were to take that experience and flip it and say that actually it's a good experience, maybe it's a learning experience for you, or maybe it's something that will positively impact you in the long run, then you can take that and say, okay, do you know what? This is actually something that I'm going to benefit from. So you completely reframe what the experience looks like. And that's the mindset I want people to be going into their career with. Now, for the purpose of this discussion, I'm going to be referencing the Kybalion by the Three Initiates. That book was written in 1908. One of the key quotes from that particular book is that everything is and isn't at the same time. All truths are but half truths. Every truth is half false. There are two sides to everything. Now, this statement is a deeply metaphysical statement, and it requires a lot more discussion than just one or two lines of text as is given here. So what I'm probably going to do is in future actually create a video discussing the phrase all truths are but half truths. However, just for the sake of this video and the premise of why good and bad are just perceptions, what we need to realize is that there are two sides to every coin. What is good to you is bad to someone else, and what is bad to someone else may be good to you. Some people like alcohol. Some people think alcohol is evil. So while you may think having a glass of wine is a good thing, another person somewhere across the world thinks it's an evil thing. While you may think that going to the gym is a good thing, another person somewhere across the world may absolutely despise going to the gym. While you may look forward to social gatherings, somebody else may absolutely hate social gatherings. I know people that hate the sun. The sun. So given that, it should tell you everything that good and bad is just a perception of the mind, and any situation that you're put into, you can perceive as good and bad. And it's up to you to determine what you see as good and bad. Now, this will make it easier to break down. Heat and cold are identical in nature, the differences being merely a matter of degrees. The thermometer shows many degrees of temperature, the lowest pole being called cold and the highest heat. Between these two poles are many degrees of heat or cold. Call them either and you're equally correct. There is no place on the thermometer where the heat ceases and cold begins. I think this is a fantastic quote for you to understand life in general. There is no point on a thermometer scale where heat ends and cold begins. And I know some smart person is going to say that at 0 degrees is where you freeze and that's where cold begins. No, it's not, because I may say it's cold if it's 10 degrees. I may say it's cold if it's 15 degrees. Someone else who comes from a hotter country than me may say it's cold when it's 30 degrees. There is no absolute point where it is hot and where it's cold. Similarly, there is no absolute point when something is good and something is bad. We may say that certain things are indefinitely bad or indefinitely good, but that is not accurate. That is just human perception. That is just a perception of our minds. So we've told ourselves a story. Within that story, certain things are good and certain things are bad. Everything just is. Everything just is. Once you can accept that idea that everything is, you'll find that in your daily life and in your career, situations become more seamless. You can transcend situations because they don't affect you, because you recognize that it's not a good or bad thing that's happening. Let's say that something happens at work, like I work in sales, for example. Let's say I'm not able to close a particular deal. That's not a good or bad thing. It's just a thing. It just is. Good and bad are not absolute. We call one end of the scale good and the other bad, or one end good and the other evil, according to the use of the terms. A thing is less good than the thing higher in the scale, but that less good thing in turn is more good than the next thing in the scale, and so on. The more or less is being regulated by the position on the scale. That's it. You can perceive everything in life as good and say that some things are just more good than others. Or you could perceive everything as bad and say some things are more bad than others. In fact, if you break down the mental psyche of someone who's maybe going through depression or sees the world from a very negative standpoint, they're most likely going to lean towards saying that most things are bad and that some things are just more bad or less bad than others. Whereas someone who's very positive and optimistic about life, they may see most things as being good and say some things are more good and less good than others. Neither side is wrong, because everything is and isn't, and all truths are just half truths. So neither side on the scale is wrong. What it is, if you want to have a seamless journey through life, you want to be more leaning towards the good side of things. You want to take the idea that experiences are mostly good, because then what will happen to you is you'll start to experience everything from that viewpoint. Remember, your perception of reality is merely coming from your own mind. It's merely coming from the story you tell yourself and the story you create about the world around you. When you perceive things as being good consistently, you'll start to see things that maybe others see as failures as opportunities, or you'll start to see obstacles as things to help you move forwards, or you'll start to see people that seem to be going against you as people to help you move forwards in your journey. Most people cannot do this. 99.9% of people cannot think in this way. I spent time training my mind to think in this way, so that when an experience that happens to me that somebody else may see as negative, I can't even see it from their point of view now. I've got to that point. And this makes my life so much easier, because it means I can continue to fulfill a journey towards a purpose without seeing things as obstacles. I just see them as things that just are. This is the exact same way that I'd like people to get to in their career. It's going to help you transcend so many things in your career that you may think are obstacles when really they just are. And the idea of an obstacle is just a perception of your mind. It merely is just an illusion that you've created in your own mind to tell you that this is a challenge. If you told yourself that failing to get that deal was going to help you close 10 more deals in future, that's what your mind would then start to try and actively do. And that's how you would think. In summary, nothing is absolutely good nor absolutely bad. Everything is somewhere on a spectrum of two poles. For example, good or bad, hot or cold, light or dark, left or right, whatever it might be. Everything is somewhere in between those two things. You can choose how you wish to perceive the circumstances of life to reflect this. The choice is entirely up to you how you want to perceive the circumstances of life. Do not let other people dictate to you how the circumstance of life should look. Only you dictate to you how the circumstance of life looks. And that is how you then go on to consciously create a life that you want. The reason people don't live the lives that they want is simply because they adopt other people's perceptions of reality. You want to have your own perception and place that on top of reality and live that as a blueprint. And that in itself will allow you to perceive things the way you wish to perceive them, whether that be good or bad.